In this video, I'm going to show you my favourite ways to practice with a metronome in order to improve our time feel. Now I'm going to show you these different ideas in order of difficulty, so definitely make sure you stick around to the end because there's some pretty tricky but really cool ones. So hi guys, my name's Robbie Barnby, nice to see you. Before we get started, I just wanted to say if you've been enjoying the concepts I've been sharing or are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe and feel free to give the video a like because that really helps me out. With that said, let's get into it. So, as I mentioned before, I'm going to show you how we should properly use the metronome to improve our time. What I mean by this is that normally when we practice with a metronome, we would have each click on each beat of the bar. This is the regular way of using the metronome, and it is allowing us to practice listening while we play, but it's not improving our time feel because we're relying on the metronome to keep us in time, as it's doing all the work. And therefore, we don't have the responsibility of keeping the time. So the first thing which is common to do is silence 2 of the clicks so that we only have the sound on beat 1 and 3. We can do this by setting our metronome at half the value of the tempo we're playing. There's actually an app on the phone called Double Time which does this at a click of a button as well. This is starting to give us a little more responsibility for keeping the time, but the issue now is that the clicks are on beat 1 and 3. The reason this is an issue is because this doesn't do a good job of representing the feel of what happens in jazz or swing music. For this, we're going to want to put the clicks on beat 2 and 4, or feel them on 2 and 4 instead. This is because these are the beats which are accented within swing. So this is now definitely getting us to improve our swing feel as well as the ability to listen while we play. And there's definitely more responsibility on us, however we can still fall into the trap of relying on the metronome to keep the time. So here's the first way I like to properly practice my time feel using the metronome. We're only going to use 1 click per bar, and we can put this click on any beat we want to. In fact, it's good to practice in turn having the click on each different beat. As we've been doing a swing feel, let's keep the click on beat 2, but only beat 2 for each bar. So, as I mentioned before, you should also experiment with having the click on the different beats too. So just beat 4 or just beat 1, for example. But if you want to really make it harder for yourself, you should also practice having the 1 click of the bar fall on the upbeats instead. We can again, in turn practice having it on each different upbeat of the bar. Now the next level of difficulty for all this stuff is going to be to leave an extra bar of space. So for example, we could have the click fall on beat 2 again, but this time only every 2 bars. now really responsible for keeping the time, and it's forcing us to develop this feeling of a rhythmic grid. And we're going to need this in order not to get lost or not to lose the time. We can do this practice with any kind of musical feel and not just swing. I should mention that when we are placing the click on a chosen upbeat at the bar and playing music which is swung, then we are actually feeling this upbeat on the third division of a triplet. This is because the rhythmic grid of swung music is felt in 3, and the eighth note, or upbeat, represents the third or last division of the triplet. For music which has a straight feel, the upbeat is dead in the center or played evenly between the beats because the grid is felt in 4. The reason I bring this up is because we can also place the click on any of the other divisions of the beat. For example, if we had swung music, which is felt in 3 divisions, then we could place the click on the second division instead. This is really challenging stuff because unlike the downbeat or the third division, which is just the swung eighth note, this second division is not a common placement which we're used to feeling at all, so you can imagine how good this is for practicing it. And again, you could do this for any kind of feel. For music in a straight feel, you could place the click on any one of the 4 divisions or 16th notes. And there's also no reason you couldn't put the click on a triplet division even if you're playing music which isn't swung. Now this would be seriously tricky, but the more variations you try, the better. Before we move on to the next level of how I like to practice with the metronome, I wanted to say that we can do all of this stuff with any time signature as well. What I actually like doing for odd time signatures is to get the metronome doing a clave or a specific rhythm. There's another fantastic app called Time Guru which actually allows you to create a rhythm you want the click of the metronome to play. But most importantly, it has a random mute feature, which is what's going to make us keep responsibility at the time and therefore practice our inner clock or time feel and sense of the rhythmic grid. So if I wanted to practice in an odd time signature such as 7/4, then I would pick a clave. A common one would be to feel the bar of 7 is split into a bar of 4 and a bar of 3, and have the click on beat 1, 3, 5, and the upbeat of 6. Now adding the random mute feature. You can do this for any time signature or even any odd compound time signature because you can choose whatever rhythm you want the click to be. I do recommend starting with the common claves, so like for 5/4 you could do the take 5 clave for example. Let's now move on to the next level of difficulty. What's really good to do is to feel the click in groupings which go against the time signature you're playing. For example, if we're playing in 4/4, we could have the metronome click every 3 beats or every 5 beats, basically any odd number which doesn't line up with 4. This is now creating a polyrhythm or a separate tempo which crosses over the bar line, and it will take a number of bars before the click resolves back to where it started. In fact, it will take 3 bars for the group of 3 and 5 bars for the group of 5 before it resolves. This is great because you'll feel the click land on each beat within one cycle before resolving. Polyrhythms are something I love to do within my playing when improvising, and this is definitely something I'm going to go deeper into for future videos, but for now, this is just a great way to start feeling across rhythm over what you're playing, and you can have a lot of fun playing against it or going with this new pulse while still maintaining your sense of where you are in relation to the original 4/4 tempo. So, really advanced stuff, but this is a great way to start practicing metric modulation. And taking this idea further, we can then double up the tempo of the click, which will result in every other click being placed on an upbeat. Another way of thinking about it is by saying, instead of having the metronome click in groupings of 3 or 5 quarter notes, it will now click in groupings of 3 or 5 eighth notes, which are still over our original 4/4 tempo. So for the grouping of 3, this is now giving us dotted quarter notes over 4/4, which is a very common polyrhythm. This is actually one I love to practice over a blues because the click will resolve back to where it started after the end of every 12-bar form, because 3 goes into 12 4 times, or because it takes 3 bars to resolve, and that will happen 4 times within the 12-bar blues form. Make sure to also try and start the form with the dotted quarter note beginning on the other beats, so beat 2, 3 or 4 as well. Also remember, you can do this for any time signature and even any feel. If we were playing music which is in 3 divisions, such as 12/8, we could have the metronome click after every 4 triplets now instead. This would actually resolve after every bar, so try having the click start on the 4 different possible divisions which allow the grouping to fall on different placements within the bar. Okay, so the last one I wanted to show you, which I love to practice, again uses the idea of a polyrhythmic grouping of 3 against 4, but only on the upbeats. This is actually a really tough one, but it's fantastic for practicing your swing feel. I think the easiest way for me to explain it is to say, if we were in 3/4, the click would land on the upbeat after 3. Now, this wouldn't be too hard in 3/4 because it resolves after every bar, but this is a good way to visualize the grouping and how often the click falls. So now when we take this grouping and change time signature to 4/4, the click placements are now on the upbeat of 3, the upbeat of 2, the upbeat of 1, and then the upbeat of 4 before resolving. And because this is a grouping of 3, we know that it takes 3 bars to resolve and that the click will fall on each possible upbeat within 1 cycle. So as always, thanks for watching. This should give you guys a lot to play around with and go crazy over. But the great thing about all this stuff is that you can include it while practicing other things for, really efficient practice. For example, let's say if you were to use these metronome techniques while taking your drop voicing inversions or arpeggio shapes through the new tune you're learning, which you're also taking through all the 12 keys. I mean, that would be like a full body workout for your musical brain because you'd be working on, several things all at once. So suddenly, if you've only got 20 minutes to practice, then you're going to be getting lots done. Also remember, the slower the tempo or the less notes you fill up the grid with, the harder it will be. This will force you to focus more on your sense of the rhythmic grid. Playing at a fast tempo and filling it in with as many eighth notes as possible, like some of my silly examples, that will actually start making us rely on our technique to stay in time as opposed to our inner clock and internal grid. So do watch out for that. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And if you want any of the notation for all this stuff or transcriptions of some of the examples I played, I'll be posting it all to my Patreon page. So you can check that out if you want to go deeper into these concepts. Links are in the description. Anyway, huge thanks again, and I'll see you in the next one.